This week on Carlie's Couch, we talk about our social lives and how to have more engaging and fulfilling social lives.
Oh man, yeah, I need this. Help me out, Doc.
Not
Help me
you,
out.
lame. How you gonna start the podcast being like, yeah, I'm whack? That's what I feel like you just said.
Oh, that's not how I took it. That's not how I took it at all.
Like, I need this. I need it too, though. Okay. But I am being whack lately. But I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about it.
But yes, happy Monday. If you have not left us a review, please go do that. 5 stars. But we like words with the 5 stars, so we can read them on here and highlight you. So go ahead and go do that. Share with a friend. So, be social. That's what this one's about. So go ahead and start your week off like that.
Yeah, we're getting towards the end of the year. This is a big time, I think, of year where you're spending probably time with your family, your friends, visiting with folks, celebrating holidays, etc. And so, sure, I think it's easier around holidays or special dates to, get with your people. But, how can we just have a more engaging social life in general? And maybe that's not even the goal right now. So, we are going to talk about some different things as relate to having the social life that makes sense for you at that time, which maybe that's actually a better title. I don't know. But Carlie, for you, what would you say you want out of your social life right now?
I want to spend more consistent time with friends. I feel like it was almost non-existent for a lot of people during, a lot of my friends during COVID. And then afterwards, I feel like I saw a meme and it said, you keep telling your friend we gonna have lunch, but then it's like you never actually see the person. So I just want to spend more consistent time with people that I love. I don't want it to be 6 months before I see them again or chat, and not even like talk every day, because I don't really talk to anybody every day like that. But just consistency and quality time.
So that's different from what it has been because you just haven't been consistent.
Yeah, haven't been consistent, and I'm working to be more intentional. So maybe I'll add that to my trio of things that I want for my social life. To actually follow through on the coffee date or on the Zoom date or on the meeting up in person, because it's always like, yeah, we gonna catch up, and then we'll never catch up.
Okay. If I had to paint the picture of my social life that I'm looking forward to, I would say that with my social life, every morning I'm chatting with my friends and checking in, and that's not different from now. I do that a lot of mornings. I'll talk to my friends before 8 a.m. because we're old now. So kind of that's usually a kind of good start to my day. Speaking more and checking in with my parents, I would say I would add to that, to the social life and to connecting with other people. That's different than now because I only hit them every once in a while. But although we play Battleship all day on iMessages, and then I'm having more lunches and meets during the day. So maybe a couple times a week, I'm catching up with an old friend or a colleague or just somebody who's a connection, but less about trying to do it's a business meeting and more about, what have you been up to and, keeping up with folks in that way. And then spending more intentional time going out in the evenings to spaces like lounges, more dinners, etc. I already go out to dinners maybe a couple times a week, actually, or at least once a week with friends. And I want to open that up to having more friends, a lot more women friends that we can go out with as a group, being able to party more. And I want to be out with people that are groups where it's I'm not defined by the people that I'm with, but we're out and we having a good time and just being able to be spontaneous and out and about. And then for my weekends to be social based on what's going on, because I really like to chill and rest, but I would say maybe that could be more intentional around being outside and kind of doing certain types of activities, hiking or things like that, and getting fresh air and kind of, maybe more one-on-one. So for me, all of that to say, for my social life, I want more, I want to add more relationships, because I do spend a lot of time with the friends that I have now, or at least the friend group. So I need to just do more. I think I want to have some more groups.
Okay. And why do you want that for your life?
You're asking me? So I want to have more friend groups because I think having a good friend group is good, but like everybody knowing everybody, I think it's kind of important, just like with any relationship. Like you also have some other folks who may be totally separate, and who can be kind of like a mutually beneficial in different ways, different interests, different things that we're talking about or doing over there. So I think that that's important. And then also why I want to go out more with folks is because I want to spend more time being aligned with people who are in spaces that I want to be more a part of or back a part of. Because when I first moved to LA, I did, shout out Trap on the God, we used to be out all the time, with particular folks, being at somebody's house and whatever. And it's just, there is something to like, even as a business person or with whatever you're doing, to align with your work life, that being in certain spaces also does get more looks your way and starts more conversations, et cetera, et cetera. So I want to do this for strategic reasons, as well as just expanding my group. What about for you? Why do you want to be more consistent? I feel like that's an obvious one though.
Yeah, as I was saying, it's pretty obvious to pour into relationships. But your very vivid picture of your social life, I'm like, damn, like yeah, I don't really go out anymore and do that stuff. So I don't know, to have more fun. Like I've been talking about, I want to do a salsa night or a bachata night for like eons and haven't done it. So, just to have more fun, to have more experiences.
Yeah, it sounds like for you, you're saying too, like what you want more out of your social life is to execute.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like you got the things you want to do and you want to execute. For me, I want to expand it into some new spaces for sure. So for you, that's something that's missing. Like, do you feel like right now there's missing things in your social life, or it's just a matter of like, let me take this another step further?
Yeah, I would say I that has been a missing piece. Like I've been so focused on my business and like intimate like dating relationship that I haven't really been spending as much time with friends because I'm so focused. But it's like, I want to be more balanced.
Let's talk about that specifically too, because that's something that happens, I think, with a lot of people, with me as well. Like when you're in a relationship or dating, that you kind of, all of a sudden your attentions kind of shift towards that space. And I think one thing we all have to be very aware of is not letting your other person become everything or trying to make them everything, which it can be difficult because I think we like the idea of your partner being your best friend or somebody you have fun with. You want to share things with them, but also it's so important. Like I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship where the other person didn't have no other friends, and it's God. Like, oh, brother, like, so they might be like on your back, always questioning, like, what are you doing? Why you want to go with them? Blah, blah, blah. And, or, every time you want to do something, they just want to follow behind you or go with you, which again is okay. But there's a lot of space and growth in relationships where you have the space to, I'm doing my thing. Or if they're like, hey, I'm going out with my line brothers or something like that. And then you're like, okay, cool. I'm doing this today. Or it's really attractive also, just for somebody to ask you to do something and you actually having fucking plans. Like, if you don't never want to be that person who don't never have plans. And so I think there's something to that too. It's like, hey, you trying to do XYZ? I'm already going out to dinner. I already doing whatever. Like, you need that sometimes. So that's definitely a balance that can be difficult at times, but it's always important to like be evaluating when we're talking about being social, like who are we being social with, and making sure we're not dropping relationships. Because you'll never want to be that guy or that girl who comes back to their friend group and they're like, oh, what happened with your girl Denise? Like, yeah, now you want to hang out and you've been ghosting us for this whole time. So how do you balance all of that to get what you need from all of this? Imagine like actually talking to your homegirls about the things you might talk to that guy about. And it's like some things you don't even need to have conversations with them about. It's okay to like spread the, the topics and things.
And it's healthier because then that puts like the pressure of them to always, like do stuff or know stuff or have solutions or this. And it's like sometimes it's better. Like different people have higher emotional intelligences or different experiences that you can relate on that might be more helpful. You talking about that kind of made me realize that I have a lot of really good friends that I'm very close with, but not a lot of them live here in LA. Like my best friend lives in Brooklyn. And so like I talk to her a lot, but it's like we were both like talking to each other about how we want more like in-person friends to do things with, because it's like cool, we can talk on the phone, but we want to do that. And then also she lives with her partner, and she was saying that is so important to to build that out, as she's been trying to expand her network of friends.
To build what out? Like
to build out, to build out the balance and to not do things like she was talking about someone that she knew who she invited on like a girl date to go to like brunch and hang out, and the girl brought her boyfriend but didn't ask her.
Yeah, that's weird.
I was like, yo,
I had a friend like that in college, but some people are like more friendly in that way. But I had a friend like we would make a plan, and it's like, why is there 2 other people behind you? Like, oh yeah, I invited them to come too. And every time I'd be like, listen, at some point I'm like, yo, I'm trying to hang out. I was trying to hang out with you. I'm not trying to think about all this extra stuff.
Yeah, because sometimes you just need that. But I do like kind of crave that balance, and also I think it's good to have mystery in relationships, to not always just them be the only person for everything.
Yeah, and it's good to not be overly available. So I think now it's like, all right, I know I want to get back out. But as you get older, it's like finding friends or discovering new relationships and new friendships, I think is a little different. And for me, I think what makes it the most challenging is, as opposed to proximity of like your neighborhood as a kid, or especially school, right? Like if you're going to school, if you're in college, like now you're in a community where you kind of like rubbing shoulders with the same people and you develop your friendships. But now it's like, all right, you might go to work, but then you hang out with your friends. Maybe you go to a church, maybe you like stuff like that. But it's like, okay, are we only going to make the friends with people we see? Like, how are we making new friends at this time? What are your thoughts about like, how you're making friends now?
It's so interesting because I was like, man,
if you are,
before you even said it, I was like, yeah, back in the day it was probably crazy because you really only knew the people that were in your little village or like whatever. But like you and I became friends off Twitter. So like that actually happens.
I've made a lot of friends off social media for sure. People that you kind of just talk to for a long time, but then you finally do kind of see them out or meet them out. So, but also I would kind of backtrack to, I wouldn't call all of them friends, so I don't want to be too loose with the word, but let's say social connections, because people I hung out with, and we're talking about being social, but everybody don't, they might not be bestie, but.
Yeah, there's a very few of those. And yeah, I am very like intentional with the word friend. And so one of the things I hear is like, how do you make friends now? I like social acquaintances because me, I would say, like you mentioned, like meeting people at work. So I teach classes. So I meet people through classes and find out cool things that they do. I met like someone at my gym, like she came up and was like, oh, like you're always here working out and that's cool. And then she was like, you want to have coffee sometime and hang out. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But now she like we talk through social media now. So I say like that's an acquaintance and an opportunity to maybe expand. But I really feel like it's kind of like affinity things. And for me, a lot of the acquaintances that I have actually do start like through a person or at an event, like at a run club or at a coffee shop I always go to. I'm friendly with the barista and then people start to know you. So mine kind of do spring from places that I actually physically am. It doesn't have to, but those are like the last few I can think of.
Mm-hmm. So is there any like thought or change to that for you? Like, so let's say if you're trying to be intentional, and I'm gonna stop saying like making friends, but like if you want to be intentional about your social life being a certain thing, how does that play the part as far as what you just said with where you're meeting people and how you meet people?
That I would probably need to go more places. A lot of times right now I'm only going places because it's like a function of work or things that I'm like have to do or like am doing for my business and stuff. And so it'd be like, oh, let me go do salsa just because I want to do it because it's fun. Let me go take this class because I want to because it's fun. Let me go do this. And then from there, it could expand into other stuff.
Into meeting people there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, meeting people who do different stuff, or even just seeing like the types of events, because like maybe that's not your person. But like if I go with a homegirl to she's interested in, maybe like meet someone else there, or they talk about another event that sounds more interesting, and you can kind of start to build up social acquaintances from there. So I met someone who was in one of my classes, but then she also does run club which I like sometimes like help do events for and stuff. And on social media, we're like, hey, let's go do like a hot girl walk. Let's just go walk around the neighborhood and talk and get coffee. And that was so nice to actually just like walk and talk to somebody different and new and hear about her experience. She's actually from North Carolina. It's a lot of y'all out here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. But do you know what school she went to?
Hampton.
Okay, so she didn't go to school there. Okay, I think that makes sense. And it kind of goes back to what we tend to bring up often about, well, if you're centering your life around the things you want to be doing, then of course like those people around might be more aligned, and it might make more sense of making those connections and then continuing to maybe go out with them or hang out with them as well. I'm trying to think of the last time I made a new like acquaintance or a friend, and by that though, I'm thinking about like, well, somebody now that I hang out with or talk to consistently, and I'm not coming up with anything particularly new there, outside of like from the basic friend group, how, you know, sometimes every once in a while, like new people might kind of come in for a little bit and then you might get to know them. I think that for me, I have spent from 2020 on, even the people that are like my best friends now, even considering like Adamo or my friend Kyle, LaShawn, these folks, really it's just within the last couple of years, I feel like we've gotten much like actually closer to really be friends. So what changed is with COVID, we kind of started having like a tighter community of talking to each other more so via phone and like group texts. And like now when we're getting together, it's because like, all right, well, we can get together and, you know, we're gonna make sure you wash your hands, get your test done and all those things. And, you know, you might not just be out in these streets because things were kind of closed down, but we can get up together and spend time. So I think I did a lot more talking to folks that were already in my circle, but I still wasn't like friends with them. And I was telling somebody the other day talking about my DC group of friends. Like when I lived in DC, it really wasn't even until like a couple of months before I moved from DC that had really just started like regularly going out to like happy hours or meeting up with the same people and stuff like that. So I thought about how much time it can take for friendships and relationships to kind of grow like new ones. And I think for me, it's because I already don't really like keep up with everybody that much. So what really keeps somebody around for me in my life is, it is kind of like the proximity. Because also, sorry guys, I hadn't talked to them in forever, like since I left. So I would say like kind of proximity around people, and also just kind of being aligned on particular like values. You know how like some people, I've gone out with some people and it's like, oh man, it's about to be one of those like, oh, we waiting for the guy to like put us in this section, and like now we just sitting there look like trophies. Like I hate stuff like that. And like there's just certain people I don't like. I know the type of people I don't want to be out with because I don't like that vibe. And I know I'm looking for folks who have kind of a little bit more like adventurous spirit or independent type spirit. And that's what kind of makes me feel best hanging out too. So all that to also say, making friends now as I'm older, a lot of times starts from talking first and like having conversation. So for me, that is a lot of times like social media and or kind of reaching out via some kind of social. Maybe like we're having a little bit of talking or conversation to that then goes outside of that. And then outside of that, it is like as you meet friends, and getting to know them and maybe hanging out with them if there's alignment there.
Yeah. I really was trying to think of someone that maybe became a friend or anything, not through proximity, but like everybody else is really like Lala owns the gym that I work at, you know, like Charlie and I work together. Now I'm on the board of her nonprofit. Like it's all these things that like,
but is that okay? You think? Like, do you think it's like, dang, all my friends are through like work or through a thing? Is that okay?
I think it's fine. They're high quality people, and thank God I only attract that because that's what I am. So shout out to me. But yeah, all my friends are so great. What I will say is I've never had like how you have such a concentric friend group. I have never in my life had a friend group like that. And it's so interesting. I'm like, maybe I'm not a friend group person, or like it just has never worked out like that. I always have like maybe two people, but it's never like a big thing. And I'm like, do I need that? Is that a thing that like I need? You see it on all the sitcoms and stuff like that. But
yeah, no, and we are a sitcom. It's so crazy because it's like 17 or 18 of us maybe, but it is interesting because we often like, yeah, this is like a sitcom, because I have walked, like a couple of them live down the street from me, like across the block. Then there's a few that are more in like South LA, but there's like a few who live close together there. There's a few who live close together like Glendale. So it's like there's these little centers, but it's always so funny when it's like I can like walk down the streets and my friend drive by like, hey, and it's like very sitcom-y. Or I was at my friend's house the other day and I like just popped in the door and they were like, damn, Kramer, like, and then I just went and sat on the sofa talking to them, and like it really does feel like a sitcom, like seeing each other out and about, being able to actually spend time with them. And I think the thing that blows my mind the most about having my friends and my friend group is because I'm 37 years old, and it's just so funny to think about, like, the way we be hanging out and the things that we do is like, I just never, I didn't grow up seeing like the adults like kind of like air quote hanging out. I know a lot of people that have though, but for me, not really. Like my parents weren't like hangout parents. It's not like they had people over and stuff like that. But for us, it's so interesting because like now, people in the friend group that have kids and things like that, and we're like all aunties. We're like going to the kids' graduations and giving them money and having cookouts, and like her, shout out a little Amani, like her graduation from middle school was like, we was more turned up than her. Like she was probably outside somewhere. We was grilling, doing all the things. And it's just so fun to like be like, oh, like getting older doesn't like mean we're not having fun. Like, we still be having roommates and hanging out and just doing whatever. I had a night till 3 a.m. the other day, and I was like, all right, I guess that's what we doing. And then even tomorrow, or not tomorrow, the next day in our subgroup text, because we have subgroups from the big group. Like I have a smaller group of like people we talk about F1, this smaller group of me and a couple of the closer ones and the ones that like to do certain things. But now we have our little subgroup for that. And the next morning we're all like, oh man, I'm dehydrated today. I'm driving to work thirsty as hell. Like, yeah, man, I'm about to cancel these meetings. And so it's like, it's still fun, and we're being responsible and still also talking about work. We also had like a little LinkedIn session with a couple of my friends the other day too. And then that same night, then we in the streets. So it's just fun. And I think I like having this group, but I guess the difference is I don't think it's a rather, but like I do like the idea of like there's different groups that I don't know if all your different groups know each other. Yeah, it was like nice to have like different groups. So that's like still why I kind of want to make sure like, you know, it all gotta get messy. And especially now that like half of them are getting married within the group and stuff. And it's like, all right, you know, like sometimes you can't hang out with you know, somebody's wife and then be in the group chat talking about we had such time last night. like it's like, all right, let me, you know, you got to keep things a little separate sometimes too.
Yeah, I was about to say, mine have always been so separate. It's like I have like, you know, my line sister group, my Neos, like, and, you know, all the little subgroups. Like you said, I have a hella subgroups, but it's never been a big one. I've always thought that's so cool and so fascinating. And it's been awesome to see y'all's like grow closer.
But you know what might be the plus of that for you is that, because I was thinking about like, I'm not really a planner, because that's why like even with you or with other friends who are like, they're more of like a one-off or a couple people type thing. And like, I'm not always trying to like plan stuff and trying to do stuff. And so, but within my group, I'm still not the planner, but we do things because family might be like, oh, where we at for, you know, Martin Luther King Day, or like, you know, somebody just kind of starts it and then it becomes a thing. So if we're talking about social life, for me, one thing I can do more of is initiating that stuff with different people, because I don't even initiate it with the ones I go out with half the time. So it's not like I'm, you know, making all these plans over here and not over here, but the good thing about this group is like there's always something going on with somebody or with a couple people. So they'll be like, oh, I'm DJing here, you know, or this is happening, or I just dropped this, you know, thing for work, or like this content or whatever. And we get to all like support each other and like participate where you want to and where you can.
I think that that's great. And I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes like in friendship situations, it can be like, well, why aren't they reaching out to me? Like if they wanted to, they would. And I see you people tweet that type of stuff a lot. Like even
I ain't reaching out to nobody. I be on the sofa till somebody come up with something to do.
But see, that's good to know, because it's like I feel like sometimes that might keep people from reaching out and being social, because they're not reaching out to me. But you really have to know your friends. And it's so funny because I think about it. I'm like, yo, every time I've ever slid you like a cool adventure idea, we go do the shit. And I'm like, oh, it's a whole epiphany. So, you know, maybe just recognizing who your friends are and sliding that way.
Yeah. And also, though, there's some things with subgroups of the friend group that where like things just become regular things that we do. And so, you know, like even with you, although it might be like how some people might think about it at work, and it's like, well, I do see you like every week doing this. And so for me, I'm like, all right, I'm around and stuff. But for people I'm not doing work with or a project with, that might not even feel the same, right? Like you want to do something outside of like that kind of realm. But it becomes that, you know, we have particular routines where we know like, all right, we're probably going to go out to eat, or there's certain things that we might kind of do. So kind of maybe even just in hanging out, trying to develop out like, well, what works for your schedule, other people's schedule that you want to spend time with, and then getting out in a way where you kind of try to make that consistent.
Yeah, and that could be you reaching out to other people, but also like, and this is my part, like I have to start saying yes to people more often because people do reach out with stuff, and a lot of times I'm like, oh, I don't know, like maybe, and then maybe is no most of the time.
And then when you say no so many times, then you start seeing people's stories turned up, and they be like, dang, y'all ain't asked me. And it's like, well, you don't be saying, you don't be want to go. And do you have FOMO? You kind of do based off some of the things you say, but not.
I was about to say kind of, but it's like I don't know if it's real or like, because I don't be missing the activity, I be missing the quality time, but I don't really want to go do certain things, like, you know what I mean? Like and also to be fair, it's like, I have certain friends who have their own subgroups, and they'll invite me to a thing with people that I don't really care to be around. Like I don't dislike them, but I don't really care for. They're not my people. Yeah,
like I could still know, like I'd rather chill on the sofa by myself.
And so the thing is, like I might have FOMO from seeing them in that situation and spending time, and also recognizing like I made the right decision because I don't really want to be around the rest of that.
Yeah, I've recognized I literally do not ever have fear of missing out of anything. Like if I'm at home or if I'm like being boring or whatever, like I'll be like I don't give a damn what y'all doing. Like I'm not like, oh, I should have did it or I should have went. Like I never feel like that. But I do like going out and it just becoming like what it is, it being kind of spontaneous. But yeah, I really listen to myself when it comes to like my social life. I listen to like how I'm kind of feeling, what's my energy, because sometimes another thing I've learned about myself is I can't make and I don't make plans too far ahead either, because like I be feeling real different when Saturday morning come around or and it's like, oh yeah, I was in a really good vibe and feeling good. I was like, yeah, let's go hiking this weekend. And then it's like, I wish I hadn't did that, which is why I don't make plans for the weekend now. So even like we're recording this on the weekend, and a lot of times like, I don't have no plan, so like we could put a recording time down, but then by the time we're here and you're doing this, I've had conversations with people, and it's like, oh shoot, I'm trying to go to this thing at 2 or do whatever, and I let it just kind of happen from there. But I don't plan too far ahead because I really listen to like what's the mood I'm in, and I also know myself that I know I need to be out the house at a particular time in order to stay out and do things. And or like I have to kind of keep flowing, I'm like a keep flowing person. I'm the person when I go out, it always has to be the most, as far as like I start here, then we go into this, then this and this. And that's just because once I stop, I'm stopped. Or once I'm in the house, I'm kind of in the house. So I think that's okay to like listen to and think about how you feel. And I think also that's a good way to not become that person who's always a pump faker, who's like, oh, you try to do this tomorrow, you try to do that. And it's like, you never really follow through with it. So yeah, I'm like, a lot of my friends, that's why also like they're all creatives and in spaces where minus one that has to like lock her phone up in the locker at work all day. But we can make like impromptu plans and like just do stuff as we want to do it.
I think that knowing yourself is so huge, and maybe like I'm kind of stuck between like still trying to figure out what it is. Like I always respect my mood, but I don't know, like I don't be knowing how I want to feel when, like that's why it'd be hard to commit things.
Sometimes you do gotta break through a little bit if you're kind of blah.
And so that's the thing. It's like I kind of gotta just like put myself out there. But I do remember like being in business school and also in college, and like people like, oh, let's go to the party. I'm like, I don't want to go to this fucking party, but I'm gonna go to this party. And like I used to put myself in situations I didn't want to be in. So I think that when I had my own volition afterwards, I like stopped doing everything. And so it's like now trying to figure out like what fits my mood, and also like how I'm feeling about it.
And sometimes you kind of be like, all right, and you go to something that ends up being really good or fruitful, and then sometimes like what you thought was gonna happen going out is like, oh man, I should have stayed at home. Excuse me. So you never know, and you kind of still have to be open to like what things look like and what the adventure is gonna be.
Shooter's gonna shoot, so you gotta shoot either way. And then kind of like be okay with your choices. But if you want to, either start like putting stuff out there or start saying yes and actually showing up. Yeah,
sometimes I get like a little blah or kind of like anxiety around agreeing to stuff at sometimes. So like that's why like I leave all my texts be unread until I can like really think about it, and or that's why sometimes like I'll have people muted or whatever, because I feel like it's almost like I gotta be in a certain space first, and then I like see what's going on, or like let me see what they're talking about or whatever, because I think sometimes when you're, I don't even know if it's anxiety or what else are other words, and not necessarily being depressed, but sometimes when you just kind of like not in a social mood, and it might be because of a certain time of the month, it might be something going on, you might just be tired because you're working hard or whatever. But I kind of like to assess like how I'm feeling, and I think I typically can recognize and call out when I'm am I blah and I was like, I do want to be around people, or am I blah and I'm cool with like chilling? Like there's two kind of different times, because then sometimes I'm blah and it's like I need to get out and do something, and then I might hit somebody up or something. But then there's sometimes I'm like, glad nobody's calling me, Netflix, and 10 episodes later and like I'm chilling. So yeah, how does that affect you as far as like, is there any anxieties around being social?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have huge anxiety about committing to do anything. I'm like, oh, and I have the same thing. I saw a meme and it was like, don't ask me too far because I'm gonna get stressed out about it, but don't ask me right then because it's too late. There's a window. And my homegirl Anna and I, like, I love how spontaneous she is, because literally, like, we talked on a Wednesday and went to Tulum the next Monday. Like, you know what I'm saying? I like that.
Because it just depends on the right time.
Yeah. And so I get a lot of anxiety about that. And then also, because I feel like people want me to show up for stuff, and I had to communicate this to actually Stacey, one of my really good friends, because she would call me every day and want to hang out and talk and stuff, and I had to be like, hey, hey, I love you, and I don't do that. But then if I go, like, you know, back in college,
than me, because that's where you get the mute, and then I hit people back 2 days later, and then I feel like people kind of get the vibe, like, all right.
But I just told her, I was like, I don't talk to that every day. I was like, but I know that you have a need, and so you know, if it goes, like, it used to be like 4 days, now it's longer because we're more grown. But like, it used to be like 4 days. She'd be like, bro, you alive? Do I need to send the squad out? Like, what's up? So yes, all of that.
That's good.
Big thing to say, anxiety for sure.
And then a huge part we haven't even really talked about yet either is like, there's kind of like anxieties and hold up sometimes in the actual like preparing to go out and then going out. Cause dog, there's been a few times I was like, yeah guys, I'm going out, whatever. And I'm like, I don't got no fits, dog. Like, the shoes ain't right with this, or this part ain't right. My head look a mess. Like, and you just like, man, never mind. Like, there's so many times, like, so that's another key for me, like with being social, is planning my wardrobe, and like even like through the day kind of thing. Sometimes my better days are when I'm like, all right, I kind of know what I'm about to put on, and like I actually get up, get dressed. Once you look good, that tends to be when you more so want to be out. So yeah, like now I'll be like, do I have anything to put on before I, you know, try to hit people up, like, what y'all on today? But like, you know, when you look good, you're like, yo, what y'all on? Like,
hey.
and that's what happened the other day when I just got my hair done. I was like, where we at tonight?
That's why I say, I hope y'all watching the video.
And then 10 hours later, we were still out on the street. So, you know, I think that's a big part of it. It's stressful sometimes, like trying to put things together. Like when you're like, I don't look cute. Being older, again, 37, and like looking around, it's like, damn, everybody else all effortlessly, like face beat. I don't even know how to do no damn makeup. Like, you know what I mean? All those things. And as my buddy Joe Button has said, like, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And so I remember expressing this to one of my other friends, Trocon. I was like, man, we were the everyday people. I was like, I'm looking around like, I don't think I belong out here anymore. Like, I really kind of in my heart was feeling a little hater energy. Like, damn, like all these young, beautiful women. I feel like I'm just like, kind of, you know, in there. And he was like, Alexia, anywhere you go, you stand out. And I was like, okay, thank you. And like, cool. But also it's like, damn, like, you know, when you be like, yo, I know I got bags under my eyes and stuff, like my photos don't be looking like, you know, photo finish and stuff. But all that to also say, like, it's not like I'm out here like, oh my gosh, I'm ugly, I can't go out. But it is like different. It's like, there's a level of effort of what's going on in different types of environments. And so for me, maybe that also just means is like, okay, I'm not really into like doing the most and maybe being in certain club spaces or stuff like that, but there's a lot of different things and fun things to do. And so again, like just realigning with where you want to be, how do you want to show up? And then that's the one thing I've always loved about LA is like, you could go to the club in your Chucks, or like when I first went out here and I was like, oh, y'all could do whatever. Meanwhile, in North Carolina, it was like, you know, if you didn't have certain shoes on or certain this or that, you can't get in, and, you know, all the other hater stuff. But yeah, and there's just a different look. But it's like, that's one thing I like about LA is you could be more yourself in most like areas, I think. So yeah, like thinking about those things. Is there anything about the actual getting ready, the going out, the, you know, finding a parking spot?
I was just about to talk about transportation. So one thing I love about LA is whatever energy you have, you can find that shit. Literally, whatever, how are you feeling that day, you can find it. And I love that about LA. I also don't quite enjoy trying to get places sometimes. I think the beautiful part about being an entrepreneur and having, you know, a schedule that I make up is I'm never really sitting in traffic. So look at God. And also that like gives me anxiety if I know I have to be at a certain event, because then it's like, okay, what the parking looking like, how far I gotta walk, and these shoes, what neighborhood, what this, is it better to Uber? But then Ubers be expensive, be taking a long time, and then like, so that could also make me not want to go a place. I definitely went to a party one time in Inglewood and drove around for 30 minutes and took my ass home. Was like, I'm not.
That sounded like back in the day, Adams Morgan. And I was like, man, come on, man. Like every time, I would literally drive around like 40 minutes and be like, okay, I gotta go home, bro. I'm gonna have to hit y'all and be like, maybe next time.
I tried.
But yeah, and also that's back in the day when Ubers used to be like $8, and now Ubers are hella expensive. So it's like you really gotta calculate like, what's the risk level of how turned up am I about to get?
Exactly.
What's the parking and how much is the Uber? It's like it's equation. You gotta do like
you got on the glasses. You like carry the one.
Or for me, like luckily, like that's a good thing I can think about too. Is like, all right, I might just have to do the one way Uber because my boy who lives across the street, like he could drive me back home. Like so, you really gotta like think hard. But you know, I'm not gonna hold y'all. I think the thing that makes social life the most fun is not the most, but actually having a budget too makes a big difference, because it is a lot of fun to have like different elevated experiences with your friends, but also for people who, and I know Carlie's probably like this too, I just said probably because I didn't want to super define you, but I'm sure you're like this, but it's also so fun like just doing like nature-y things, being outside and, you know, being in just beautiful spaces. But again, you have to just know your friends and know, you know, who's trying to do what. I know friends, like if it's anything where they might sweat, like don't hit me up. So, yeah, like I really think like if your money's together, you have good groups, like it's just being social is a lot of fun. And it's hard to be social when you don't have the means to like, you got to think about how getting there, or like how much you can order, or, you know, what's going on. And for that, I would say you could still definitely be social. It just may be invite people over. It may be like, hey, let's go meet up at the park and have a picnic or something. It might be, you know, let's go to the tea shop and catch up. So I think it's still important regardless of your situation, and maybe also consider, well, what can I do now if I want to get a little more social? And then think about like how that might change later just based off of, you know, all those different variables.
Oh man, I have many park dates with friends. Go read a book, we get coffee, go get, you know, whatever, and just go sit at the park and talk. Like I'm laughing because that absolutely is me. I love that. It doesn't have to cost a lot, but I do enjoy elevated experiences. And everybody knows I also hate going out with people, and then it's like all the stress about splitting the bill. That is also a good thing about being older, because it's not like penny pinching. Now, I ain't had no drink, but you had three.
Yeah.
We not.
And you gotta know yourself, because
that.
I just stay home. Like if I knew something's going down, like I just stay home, because I'm not about to be in a predicament where I might be struggling with something like later. So.
Yeah, or also just around that energy, because for me that's like big lack energy. Like when people are going at it and combative over things like that, I just don't do it. I'm not gonna go. So there's that. But then we haven't talked about like what happened. So maybe, you know, we talked about maybe not having money, stuff like that, but like what happens when you're depressed or when you are kind of going through it? Like how does that affect your want and need to be social? And like how do you plan for that?
I have a friend that I might have seen twice in the last year and a half, and we have all the same friends. They're part of the friend group, but they never would say anything. You know, there's always like a couple people who are there. And, you know, after a while, I'm like, hold on, I ain't seen this person in a long time. Or they don't really talk anymore. And checking up on them on the back end. And it's like, you know, I kind of just want space right now. It's like, okay, I think that, and I guess that's from the example of not me, but from dealing with other people sometimes, where they're in a space where it's like, and I still don't even know like exactly what's going on, but I know to check up and to say, hey, how's things going? And it seems like things are fine. It's just maybe it might be something personal. It might be something in general where it's just like, let me fall back and like focus on something else, whatever it might be. But I think that when you're going through things, it really can cause you to isolate, because maybe you don't want people to see a side of you or see, you know, something you may be going through. Maybe you're just doing too many mental gymnastics in other places. Like you don't have the energy for people's energy sometimes. And sometimes maybe it's like you don't want to bring other people down. So you may not want to be like that person out. Sometimes, because I know I'm a person sometimes in a group where it's like, sure, I want to maybe come hang out, but I'm not like super turned up. So there's sometimes I want to know, like, if I'm not feeling super turned up, depending on what it is and who's there, I'm like, nah, I don't want to go, because I just don't want to be that person where everybody's like, are you good? Like, what's going on? Or like, you not turned up today? A lot of times that would be something like if I had like a lot of work to do or something, and you're thinking about other things. Or sometimes I would be the person who was out, but I like pull my laptop up real quick, and I notice people like, man, you always working, blah blah blah, and I'm like, actually, this is the first time I'm doing anything today. But like, when your vibe's not gonna match, and so I'm like, yeah, let me just like hang back, so I don't have to be that person. And so I try to, I guess, again, like we said earlier, decide on what do I think will be best for me, some fresh air or some energy, or just to like, if I'm in a space where maybe I'm processing something or dealing with it, just to deal with it, especially when I know it's a like temporary type thing. Like, like sometimes I know my brain is being led by my ovaries right now, so I just need a couple of days, like, and I'll be fine. And so I just do make all those kinds of assessments. But it is important, I think, that when you have people that you kind of notice maybe fall off or not being as social in the same way, to be aware of that, to kind of check in and, just be available for people if they want to do something.
Mm-hmm. And to be gracious and just knowing that people like go through things. So I remember I kind of went through like a hard time, and I was not there, and my friends checking on, hey, you good? Like, yeah, I'm good. I just kind of need my space. But then and she was like, yeah, I don't understand it, but I'm here and I support you. Mm-hmm. But then fast forward, like this last year, she was going through a similar thing. She's like, man, I fucking get it. Like, I thank you for giving, for communicating that with me and like holding your boundaries and stuff. She's like, cause now like, I'm so glad I have a friend like you, and you were so brave, cause now I can do that. And it like meant a lot to her, because she is hard for her. She's on the opposite end of the spectrum to say no. Like, she's the friend who goes to everything you invite her to and does all the things, and the dog's birthday like and the thing. I can't do that either in my life. But through me, she's learned like, oh, it's okay to not do that sometimes.
And that's another point too with both of these kind of examples, that it's also important to respect other people when they don't want to do something and they don't want to go out or whatever. Like, I don't think you should ever necessarily feel like to pressure somebody else into being social because you want to, or you may not really know what's going on either. So it's always good, and that's why it's important to have different friends and different friend groups, so you're not always depending on any one person or any group or whatever, because that they may not always be available like that. So definitely, I think that if you're looking at your social life and assessing that and kind of wanting things to be different, I think one of the main things is like, just don't really try to force it. You don't have to force it, and yet you can strategize. Because I'm for sure have strategy right now about who I'm catching up with. Maybe a little bit leaning more towards on because of like kind of work stuff, but it's like, I have way too many relationships that I don't take advantage of, in that like they could be deeper, they could think of me for certain projects. I could I could be out with them at certain things. They're always going to dinners and stuff like that. I have one friend who works for a liquor company, but how they just put together all these like events and vibes and all these things, and I was like, you're always out hanging out, and I know it's for work. Like, I know he doesn't really like love like really being in a club. It might look like that from like social and stuff, but he's like, yeah, I just gotta do, this is what I do. And I was like, man, can you start inviting me to stuff so I can meet some new people? Like, I just wanted to be in some new groups. And then he did invite me to like a dinner with, so I didn't know nobody. This thing was like two other girls, one other guy, and then the girls ended up being like really cool. And so it's fun just to have somebody else help curate space for you. So if you have good friends, that's also another thing, is like letting them know, like speak up and say, I want to get into this space, or I want to hang out with some new people. And if they know you well and know like what might make sense, then it's good to allow other social people to kind of help pull you out a little bit. So don't force it, but have some strategy, and think about really what you want. Carlie earlier was like, oh, I see like your vision for it is vivid, because I like really can see like exactly how I want my week to look with that, and with my social life for sure.
And I need to really think about mine, because I haven't. Because I was like, oh, I know I want it to be more intentional, but I can be a lot more strategic and a lot more intentional with my vision for kind of what I want that to look like. And the other thing, don't force, like, you not feeling it, dog, don't force it. Always respect yourself and how you feeling, and also challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone often.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that is our episode on being social. This week we have a question for you. We want you to hit us up at Carlie's Couch or in the comments under the post or on YouTube, whatever. But Carlie, this week the question is, what was your first CD or tape?
So I had a TLC tape, and Britney Spears was my first official CD.
I don't remember the first CD, but the first tape I remember for me that I bought was, I think, like 4th grade, and it was Spice Girls.
Oh man!
So I had a Spice Girls tape during that time.
Yeah, so hit us, be social with us, and hit us this week. Let us know what you're going to bring to the streets whenever you out there, and kind of what stood out to you.
Bye.
Peace.